Back at home, 𝐻𝐵𝐵𝐵 met her at the gate with open arms. "You did well, my daughter," she said. "I feel like a fool," Doyin replied, resting her head on her mother's shoulder. "No," her mother whispered. "Fools hide behind pride. But you stood in your truth today. That takes strength." Doyin nodded. And for the first time in a long time, she smiled. That evening, as the village buzzed with leftover excitement, a small boy ran through the path near the mango tree. He stopped when he saw something shiny on the ground. It was a drumstick. He picked it up and looked around. Then, far down the path, he saw a tall figure walking away, dressed in fine cloth, with a small drum hanging at his side. The boy blinked. "Is that?" But the figure disappeared behind the trees. The morning sun rose slowly over 𝐼𝐻, casting a golden light across the village. It was supposed to be a day of joy, of dancing and celebration. But for Doyin, the day felt like a quiet echo after a loud storm. The wrestling contest was over. The winner had been chosen. But the bride had said no. Villagers were still whispering. She disgraced the whole village. After all the preparations. Did she change her mind again? Is it pride? Or is she just confused? But Doyin was no longer hiding behind closed doors. She sat outside her home that morning, helping 𝐻𝐵𝐵𝐵 peel yams for the family meal. Her wrapper was simple. Her hair was tied neatly. And on her face, a calmness rested. Her younger sister sat nearby, unsure what to say. Finally, Titi spoke up. "Sister, are you okay?" Doyin looked up and smiled. "Yes, I am." "You were so brave yesterday," her other sister said softly. "Even though people laughed, you stood your ground." Doyin paused, then said, "I didn't feel brave. I felt scared. But I knew what I didn't want. And I think sometimes, saying no is stronger than saying yes." The king sent a messenger to their house later that day. "He says he respects your decision," the messenger told 𝐻𝐵𝐵𝐵. "But he advises that the next time, you choose wisely." 𝐻𝐵𝐵𝐵 nodded. "Please thank him. My daughter has learned her lesson." But Doyin didn't feel like it was just about learning a lesson. It was more than that. It was about knowing who she was now. Not the girl who chased love through attention. Not the girl who rejected love out of pride. But the woman who knew that being chosen didn't matter as much as choosing herself. That afternoon, the village square was quiet again. Leftover palm fronds hung loosely from posts. A few wrappers forgotten from the contest were still blowing in the wind. Doyin walked past the square on her way to the stream. She carried a calabash on her head and walked slowly, not in shame, but in peace. People still stared. Some frowned. Some whispered. But she smiled and kept walking. At the stream, a few women greeted her. "Good afternoon, Doyin." "Oh, you're strong, oh. After all that happened, you still came outside." She laughed. "I need water just like everyone else." One woman nodded. "Well done, my dear. You did what many cannot do, you listened to your own heart." Doyin was surprised by the kind words. She thanked her and continued fetching water. On her way back, a familiar scent caught her nose, sandalwood and shea butter. It reminded her of 𝐼𝐻𝐵𝐵𝐵. Her heart tightened. Then she shook her head. "No," she whispered. "Let the past rest." But her feet took her through the bush path near the mango tree. And when she reached the tree, she stopped. The ground still had footprints from the crowd that gathered months ago. The tree still stood firm. And beneath it, something caught her eye. A small calabash of oil, carefully placed at the base of the tree. She walked closer. There was a note tied to it with palm string. She picked it up and read, "Even trees remember the songs of dancing feet." Her hands shook. Was it from him? 𝐼𝐶𝐧. Or someone else who remembered? She looked around, but there was no one in sight. She picked up the oil, placed it in her wrapper, and walked back home slowly. Her heart was beating softly now, like a slow drum. That evening, she poured a little of the oil into her palm and rubbed it on her skin. It smelled like memory, like joy, like the beginning of something. As she sat by the fire with her mother and sisters, Titi asked, "What are you thinking about?" Doyin smiled, eyes on the flames. "I'm thinking that maybe the next dance will be different." "Dance?" Titi teased. "With who?" Doyin shrugged. "Maybe with myself. Or maybe someone who sees more than just what I look like." Her mother nodded silently. She understood. Later that night, under the same sky that had once heard her cries, Doyin stood alone in the compound. She looked up at the stars. They twinkled like little drummers, tapping gently in the heavens. And she whispered, "If I ever get the chance again, I will choose with my heart, not my pride." The wind brushed past her like an answer. And for the first time since the day she said goodbye to 𝐼𝐶𝐧, she danced. Not to forget him. Not to win anyone. But just to feel alive again. The sun climbed gently over the hills of 𝐼𝐻, casting its light over the rooftops and farms below. The festival drums were long silent, but in people's homes and hearts, the echoes of Doyin's contest still lingered. Some still whispered with scorn. She wasted everyone's time again, always changing her mind. But others whispered with respect. She's stronger than they think. She followed her heart. Doyin, meanwhile, continued to live quietly. She swept the compound every morning, fetched water from the stream, and even helped some of the village girls learn how to tie wrappers and cook simple meals. Her life was calm now. But her heart, it still beat with longing. Not the loud, desperate longing of the past, but the soft ache of a love remembered. Every now and then, when the breeze passed by the mango tree, she would close her eyes and imagine a drum. Boom ta ta. Boom ta ta. One afternoon, a grand announcement shook the village. The king of 𝐼𝐻 sent out messengers with gongs and palm leaves. "We welcome royalty from Osupa this market day," they declared. People rushed to prepare. The market square was swept, stalls were decorated, and the drummers were summoned to rehearse. Everyone asked the same question, which prince is coming? No one knew for sure. But Doyin knew who her heart hoped for. She didn't say it aloud. She didn't even allow herself to smile too much. But deep inside, a tiny flame of hope flickered. The market day arrived. The entire village gathered at the square. Palm fronds waved gently in the breeze. The smell of fried akra filled the air. Traders shouted prices. Musicians warmed their instruments. And the king sat in his finest cloth, waiting to receive the guest. Then the trumpet blew. The people turned. A long caravan of horses and carts moved through the village gate. Men dressed in fine wrappers led the way. They held staffs with gold tips and chanted songs of praise. Behind them, a chariot pulled by 2 white horses rode in slowly. Everyone leaned forward to see who was inside. Doyin stood far back, hidden behind the palm store. She held her breath. And then, he stepped out. 𝐼𝐶𝐧. But this time, he wasn't the soft-eyed drummer in a simple wrapper. He was dressed in royal cloth. A fine red cap sat on his head. Gold bands shone on his wrist. His face looked calm, older, wiser, but still him. The crowd gasped. He's the prince. 𝐼𝐶𝐧, the drummer boy. No, the drummer prince. Doyin's eyes widened. She clutched her wrapper tight and whispered, he was royalty all along. The village buzzed with surprise. But Doyin was frozen. Her heart raced like footsteps. She remembered every time he sat by her side with a drum. Every time he smiled with kindness and never once made her feel ashamed. And how she had treated him like he was nothing. Because she thought he had nothing. But now, he stood before the village in royal robes, his head held high. The king of 𝐼𝐻 stepped forward to greet him. "You are most welcome, Prince 𝐼𝐻𝐽𝐵. We had no idea you were of royal blood." 𝐼𝐻𝐽𝐵 bowed slightly. "When I travel as a man first. Not a title." The king laughed with respect. "A humble prince. We are honored." 𝐼𝐻𝐽𝐵 looked around the crowd. Then his eyes paused. And landed on her. Doyin. Standing silently under the palm leaves. Their eyes met. The world stood still. A soft wind blew between them. Neither of them moved. Then, a voice interrupted. "Your Highness, your father is ready to return now," said a royal guard beside him. 𝐼𝐻𝐽𝐵 turned away slowly, climbed back into the chariot, and the caravan began to move again. He never said a word. He never looked back. Doyin stood there, numb. Her feet felt heavy. Her chest tight. The crowd watched the royal group leave. Some waved. Others clapped. But Doyin didn't move. She had seen enough. He was gone. And he had seen her, but said nothing. Not even goodbye. She walked home slowly that day, the noise of the market fading behind her. Ayah Bashira met her at the gate. "You saw him, didn't you?" Doyin nodded. Her eyes were dry, but her heart was breaking. "I thought maybe he would stop." Her mother held her hand. Sometimes, when people leave, it's not because they stopped caring. It's because they learned to protect their heart. Doyin looked away. "And I hurt his," she whispered. Ayah Bashira hugged her tightly. "You've changed now, my child. But some things cannot be undone." That night, Doyin sat under the stars again. She didn't cry. She didn't dance. She just whispered, "I'm proud of who I've become, but I wish you could have seen me like this." The stars twinkled silently. The drums were quiet. But somewhere, deep inside her heart, a soft beat still lived. Boom ta ta, boom ta ta. Not for the village. Not for the world. But for a love that came quietly, stayed briefly, and left a rhythm she would never forget. The village of 𝐼𝐻 returned to its normal rhythm in the days that followed. The excitement from the royal visit slowly faded. People continued with their farming, trading, and gossiping, because in every village, gossip never sleeps. But the whispers were now different. So, 𝐼𝐻𝐽𝐵 was a prince all along. And Doyin threw him away like cassava peels. She would have been a queen by now. Some people laughed at her. Others felt sorry for her. A few even said she deserved it. Doyin heard it all. She didn't reply. She just swept the compound every morning, greeted her neighbors, helped her mother in the kitchen, and went about her day quietly. But at night, when the moon was high and the wind soft, she sat outside under the stars and thought of him. 𝐼𝐻𝐽𝐵. The man who loved her when no one else did. The one she mistook for a joke, until it was too late. One evening, Ayah Bashira called Doyin into her room. The oil lamp flickered gently, casting long shadows on the mud walls. "My daughter," she began, "I want to tell you something." Doyin sat down quietly. "Yes, Mama." Ayah Bashira took a deep breath. "When 𝐼𝐻𝐽𝐵 first came to dance with you, I knew he was different." Doyin frowned. "How, Mama?" "Because one day, while you were sick, a young man dressed like a traveler came to the gate. He left without saying his name, but he gave me a pouch of herbs and said, 'Give this to her. It may help her feel better.'" Doyin's heart skipped. "You never told me." "I wasn't sure who he was. But now, I believe it was him, 𝐼𝐻𝐽𝐵." Doyin's eyes filled with tears. So he came even after I pushed him away. Yes, her mother said gently. He cared for you, even in silence. The next morning, Doyin walked to the mango tree. Not to dance. Not to cry. But to say thank you. She stood under the wide leaves and placed a small bowl of fresh palm oil on the ground, just like he once did for her. She knelt down and whispered, "Thank you, 𝐼𝐶𝐬𝐵𝐿, for loving me when I didn't love myself." She wiped her tears and stood tall. She was no longer the girl hiding behind food. No longer the girl chasing men for attention. She was a woman who had fallen, stood up again, and learned to walk with her head high, even if her heart still ached. Days turned into weeks. And one day, news came from Osupa village. 𝐼𝐶𝐬𝐵𝐿 had gotten married. The words felt like a stone dropped into a quiet pond. Doyin froze. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just sat down on her mat and stared at the wall. Later, when 𝐼𝐶𝐫𝐿 came into the room and saw her, she sat beside her. "Do you want to talk?" she asked. Doyin shook her head slowly. Then, in a soft voice, she said, "I knew he would. I just hoped it wouldn't be so soon." Her mother held her hand. "You may never forget him," she said. "But you will live. And you will smile again." That night, Doyin walked to the mango tree one last time. The moon was full. The stars danced above. And the wind whispered in her ear. She stood there, arms crossed, heart full of memories. Then slowly, gently, she began to move. Her feet tapped the earth. Her arms swayed. She danced. Not for 𝐼𝐶𝐬𝐵𝐿. Not for any prince. Just for herself. And as she danced, the wind carried her movement across the village. A rhythm without a drum. A song without words. A goodbye without bitterness. Later, as she walked home, she passed two girls sitting near the path. One of them whispered, "That's the girl who almost became a queen." But Doyin smiled. Because in her heart, she already was. A queen of her own story. A queen who had known love, lost it, and still found peace. Not in the hands of a man, but in the hands of truth. The dry season had begun in 𝐸𝐻. The air was dusty, and the leaves on the trees turned brown and fell quietly to the ground. Even the birds seemed to sing softer songs, as though they were tired from flying too long. Doyin walked slowly along the village path, her head scarf tied tightly, her eyes fixed ahead. She had grown used to walking alone now. No suitors followed her. No crowd gathered to watch her pass. The parade of admirers had stopped. The wrestling competitions were forgotten. The days of being called the flower of 𝐸𝐻 had faded like the color of old wrappers. Now, she was simply Doyin again. Not the big girl people laughed at. Not the slim girl people chased. Just Doyin. One afternoon, as she sat with her mother in the kitchen, stirring a pot of yam porridge, 𝐼𝐶𝐫𝐿 asked gently, "Are you lonely, my daughter?" Doyin looked up. "Sometimes." Her mother nodded. "I know the feeling. Even I have felt lonely in a full house." Doyin smiled faintly. "I thought I had found love, Mama. Real love. The kind that sees you, even when you don't see yourself." "You did find it," 𝐼𝐶𝐫𝐿 said softly. "But I lost it." Her mother stirred the pot beside her and said, "Love is like fire. If you don't protect it, even the strongest flame will fade." Doyin nodded slowly. "I should have held it tighter." "You were young," her mother said. "And hurt. You thought being admired was the same as being loved." Doyin sighed. "Now I know better." The days moved on quietly. Doyin began to help the village school teacher teach the little girls how to read and write. She also helped old Mama Dupe, the herbalist, pick leaves and grind roots for medicine. She didn't dress to impress anymore. She didn't wait at the gate for letters or gifts. She no longer hoped to hear the sound of drums. Instead, she found comfort in small things: clean water, warm food, laughter from children, and the cool evening breeze. And slowly, her heart began to heal. But some nights were harder than others. Some nights, when the moon was full and the wind felt too familiar, Doyin would sit by her window and remember. She would remember the mango tree, the drum beats, the laughter, and the man who once chased her through the forest, smiling, calling her my dancing queen. She would wonder if his new wife made him laugh the same way. If she danced with him under the moonlight. If she heard his rhythms the way Doyin once did. Those thoughts hurt. But she allowed them to come and go like passing clouds. One day, Mama Dupe said to her, "You've become very strong, Doyin." Doyin laughed. "You're the one who's strong. You still climb hills to pick leaves." "No," Mama Dupe replied, "I mean strong here." She pointed to Doyin's chest. "In your heart." Doyin looked down and smiled. "I had no choice." The old woman chuckled. "Oh, but many women have no choice too and still fall apart." "You didn't," Doyin said gently. Mama Dupe's eyes twinkled. "Because I learned what you just learned, that the heart can break, can still beat." That evening, as Doyin walked back home with a basket of herbs, she saw a wedding in the distance. There were drums. There was dancing. There was laughter. For a moment, her steps slowed. She stood behind a tree, watching. The bride smiled brightly, the groom lifted her hand, and the village cheered. Doyin felt a small tear slip down her cheek. But she wiped it quickly. Not from pain, but from understanding. Some stories are not meant to end the way we want. But they still teach us, shape us, prepare us. When she reached home, Titi was waiting at the gate. "You look tired," her little sister said. "I'm fine," Doyin replied, setting the basket down. They sat under the guava tree. The stars had started to appear. Titi looked at her big sister and asked, "Do you still believe in love?" Doyin paused. Then she nodded. "Yes. But I no longer wait for it with open hands." Titi blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Doyin smiled, "I believe love will come, not because I am beautiful or perfect, but because I am me. And when it comes, I'll be ready. Not desperate. Just ready." Titi leaned her head on Doyin's shoulder. "I want to be like you when I grow up." Doyin laughed softly. "You already are. Brave. Beautiful. Enough." That night, for the first time in many months, Doyin slept peacefully. No dreams of 𝐼𝐶𝐬𝐵𝐷. No regrets. Just silence. And somewhere deep in her chest, a calmness that whispered, "You are whole."
I hope you enjoyed the tale. If so, please like the video, share, comment, and don't forget to subscribe. Also turn on your notification to get more enchanted tales like this one. Goodbye.